The smell of fish clung to the air in Gath-Hepher, a quiet village nestled in the northern lands. Jonah knew the scent well. He had grown up with the calluses of a working man, the son of Amittai, raised among nets and tides. But it wasn't the sea that shaped Jonah. It was the whisper of the Lord, subtle yet unmistakable, that had marked his life. He was a prophet, though he never asked to be one. The voice came not in thunder or fire but in stillness, a presence that filled his bones. When the Lord first called him to speak to Israel, Jonah obeyed. His words carried truth and warning, hope and justice. He had seen cities tremble and people turn. He had felt the satisfaction of obedience and the warm breath of divine nearness. But this time was different. "Go," said the voice, "to Nineveh." The name alone chilled Jonah's spine. Nineveh, the jewel of Assyria, proud and brutal, infamous for cruelty and conquest. They were no friends of Israel. They were the enemy, and not just enemies of his people, but of righteousness, of decency, of God himself. Yet the Lord was sending him there, not to proclaim judgment from a distance, not to rain fire upon them like Sodom, but to call them to repentance. Jonah's stomach twisted. Forgiveness? Mercy for Nineveh? It felt like a betrayal of everything he knew about justice. How could he be the mouthpiece of grace for the most wicked city on earth? So Jonah ran. He packed hastily, slipping through alleys with his cloak drawn tight. Southward he went, down the hills and toward the coast, each step pounding like guilt in his chest. In Joppa, the scent of salt filled his lungs and the crash of waves sang freedom. A ship lay ready, bound for Tarshish, a distant land westward, the edge of the world. It would carry him far from Nineveh, far from Israel, far from God. He paid the fare, climbed aboard, and descended into the ship's belly. There, in the dark hold, he curled up and slept. A sleep not of peace, but of surrender. Better to vanish than to be used for a mission he could not bear. But Jonah had not outrun the Almighty. Out at sea, the skies darkened. Winds screamed without warning. Waves rose like mountains. Sailors shouted in every tongue, their faces pale with terror. They threw cargo overboard, their gods unanswered. But deep below, Jonah slept, numb to the storm. The captain found him. "What are you doing, sleeper? Call upon your God." Jonah awoke to chaos. Water churned, timbers groaned. The crew cast lots, desperate to find the cause of this divine wrath. The lot fell to Jonah. He stood before them, heart pounding. "I am a Hebrew," he said. "I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." Their eyes widened. "What have you done?" Jonah looked at the storm, a mirror of his own turmoil. "I fled from his presence. Throw me into the sea, and it will calm." They resisted at first, rowing hard to reach shore. But the storm only grew fiercer, as if the sea itself demanded sacrifice. Finally, with trembling hands, they lifted Jonah and cast him into the deep. And just like that, the wind ceased, the waves flattened, silence fell. Beneath the surface, Jonah sank, down through the currents, down into the crushing cold. Seaweed wrapped around his head. Darkness swallowed him. His lungs burned. Death came close. But God was not done. A great fish, massive and mysterious, rose from the depths and swallowed him whole. Inside, in the belly of the beast, Jonah found breath. 3 days passed, 3 nights. Enclosed in flesh and brine, he sat in the prison of mercy. And there, in that strange tomb, Jonah prayed. His voice echoed in the chamber. He cried not just for rescue, but with remorse. "From the deep I called. You heard me. I was cast out. Yet I will look again toward your holy temple." His prayer was raw, humble, drenched in sea and sorrow. He remembered the Lord. He remembered that salvation belonged not to man, but to God. Then, with a groan and a surge, the fish surfaced. It heaved Jonah onto dry land, gasping and drenched. He lay there, coughing salt, eyes lifted to the sky. The sun burned his skin. Sand clung to his limbs. But in his heart, the storm had stilled. The word came again, the same as before. Go to Nineveh. This time Jonah obeyed. Nineveh loomed on the horizon, sprawling and proud. Its walls towered. Its streets bustled with merchants and soldiers. Jonah entered, heart heavy, voice steady. He walked a full day into its heart, then lifted his voice. 40 days, he proclaimed, and this city will fall. He spoke no poetry, made no appeal, just the warning, the word of judgment. But the people listened. From the marketplaces to the palace, the message spread like wildfire. Faces turned pale. Hands dropped their wares. The king himself rose from his throne, removed his robe, and covered himself in sackcloth. He sat in ashes. He decreed a fast, not just for people but for animals too. No food, no water, only prayer and repentance. Perhaps, he said, God will relent. And God did. He saw their hearts. He saw the tears, the trembling. He saw a city bowed low. And he had mercy. But Jonah was furious. He went outside the city and sat in the dust, arms crossed, lips tight. He built a shelter and waited, hoping still for fire. But no fire came, only the sun, blazing. God appointed a plant, lush and green, to grow over Jonah and shade him. Jonah was glad. Then, the next day, God sent a worm. It bit the root. The plant withered. The sun beat down. A hot wind blew. Jonah grew faint. He begged for death. "Is it right for you to be angry?" asked the Lord. "Yes," Jonah snapped, "angry enough to die." And the Lord answered him, "Not with thunder, but with tenderness. You cared for the plant which you did not grow. Should I not care for Nineveh, that great city, where more than 100,000 people live, and cattle too?" Jonah said nothing. The story ends there.
No triumph. No vow.
Just the question lingering, and perhaps that's the point. Jonah was a prophet who knew God's power but struggled with God's grace. He ran not out of fear, but out of protest. He wanted justice, not mercy, for others. But God showed him something deeper, that love is wider than borders, that mercy reaches even enemies, that obedience means trusting not just in what God asks, but in who God is. The story of Jonah isn't about a fish. It's about a heart, reluctant, raw, and real, learning to beat in rhythm with divine compassion. It's about a man who fled and a God who pursued. It's about second chances for Jonah, for Nineveh, for all of us. Even when we run, grace runs faster.